My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubow. And have you ever wondered how a husband and wife team turned a single cash out refinance into 6 property real estate empire in under 2 years? Today, my guests, Brandon and Dani Tilson, reveal their secrets on how they their $8,000 a month surplus and how they're thriving without private lenders. Brandon, Dani, welcome to the show. How are you?
We're doing good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So, the main question people always want to know is like, how did you get started? What it is that got you into real estate? And we talked a little bit before the show, and we'll get to some of that, but what's the first entry into the actual investment side of the things?
So a lot of times in real estate, like they'll see people like us and they just assume like things magically happen, but it's a long-term approach. Like I knew I wanted to do this since I was like 18 years old. I'm 37 now. And so I just kind of lived a very frugal lifestyle. I saved up, I paid off as much bills as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then you and I have been together,
since 2014.
Since 2014. And then at that point, we paid off our car. Both of our cars were paid off. My student loans were paid off, and we paid off our house in like 7 years. And so we were just kind of stuck at like, wow, what's next? And at that point, like I had never made more than like $15.75 an hour. And so we were just kind of trying to figure out what's next. I knew I didn't want to live what I considered like a mundane lifestyle of, living 2 vacations per year and just kind of just kind of living out like the normal. I knew that there had to be more to life. So I kind of talked to Dani about like, let's do a cash out refinance. We have this house paid off and we have no debt. We have no credit card debt. I'm like, let's do this and start investing. So then we just educated ourselves as much as possible. It took you how many months to kind of get on board?
I would say at least a good 6 months to really get on board with the idea. Like I was very hesitant. Mm-hmm. And he just had to keep kind of talking me through it and all the questions and all the concerns and the worries. And
I set our links to like certain podcasts to listen to, or like, hey, read this forum, just to kind of help that education along the way. And just to show her, like, I know this stuff. I'm not just winging it. Like I've done the research. I've read the books. Like I know this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so then we did a cash out refinance. And this just kind of is the power of real estate. When we bought our house for $100,000. When we got it appraised 7 years later, it was worth $180,000. So we did a little bit of work, but then just the appreciation in that time frame, you're talking about what is that, 80,000 in appreciation. And so that was kind of like our first like aha, like this can really work even if you don't cash flow. And so we took that cash out refinance and we just started looking for our first property. And our realtor at the time, I had fired multiple realtors because I knew what I was looking for, and that wasn't it. I work a lot, and so I needed the realtor that really was going to meet my needs and basically work around my schedule. So we finally found a realtor, and I kind of knew it because that first phone call, we spoke for like an hour on the phone at like 11 o'clock at night because I just got out of work at 9 o'clock. And so he kind of brought us our first property. And it's kind of funny because we thought that property was going to be an absolute home run. And we were going to go in there and do all of the work ourselves. And it absolutely just was a train wreck. We did not run the numbers right. The repairs, we estimated at what was like 8 to 10K. Yeah, 8 to 10K.
Yeah.
And they ended up, I think we ended up putting like 35K into it. We had to replace all the windows. We ended up, instead of doing the work ourselves, we had to hire contractors. Yeah. I grew up with a single mom that didn't teach me how to do any of this really stuff. She did the best she could, but I'm not a handyman. So then I kind of had to revisit how we're going to approach this. And I kind of learned that I don't have the skills to do these, but the skills I do have is the ability to work with people and put the right people in place to do the work that I need to be done. And I have the skills to then manage these people. And so that's kind of what we did is we then really focused in the beginning about building our team. And so our team consists of contractors, lenders,
The real estate agent. Yeah.
our inspector, and then our
agent.
maintenance man. And then I ended up actually going and getting my real estate license.
Mm.
And so, because I was like, well, if we're going to be closing on these properties, we're going to be buying 4 or 5 properties a year. I might as well be getting the commission on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then none of that, but then it was unlimited for my schedule. And so I ended up getting my real estate license, and kind of things have really fast forward since then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting you say, because it's like I took 6 months for her to get on board. And some spouses, whether it's, the husband or the wife, they don't always get on board. It does take a lot, because you're essentially taking out the nest eggs and throwing them around and being like, "Oh, I'm sure it'll work, honey. Let's do it." And so, I do like what you said there. There's $80,000 in equity over about 8 years. You're getting about 10,000 a year, so you're getting maybe about 10 points of appreciation for every year you were sitting in that thing, buying it at 100, coming out in at 80. So there's probably a little bit of like renovation boost, but there's usually about a 5% a year sort of thing by natural. And people are always chasing cash flow. They're like, I got to get that cash flow. I got to get that like monthly money. But when you look at it, there is $1,000, roughly $800 a month cash flow out of your natural property in the future when you cash out refinance, should you want to. But it's a great way to get started, that savings account. And you get to keep the house. You get to keep the house. You don't have to sell it, and you get to work that thing through. So since becoming an agent, have you started working for other people as well, or just still the same thing where you're just working for yourself, buying for your own portfolio?
So we ended up, the first property we bought through an agent, and then the next 3 properties we bought that year, it was all through myself. And then this year I bought to myself. And then I just randomly found another person who wanted to buy a house on Facebook Marketplaces during like a holiday. And I didn't want to do it because it was like the holidays and I wanted to spend time with the family. But I took my shot and I sent him a message, and I ended up working with her for a while. And one of the big things was the lady was very pleasant, and she had cash and she was buying cash. So I knew eventually once she found a property she liked, it was going to close, which is a lot easier to close with cash than if someone's using, an FHA loan. And I knew
they got to go to the bank or something.
Yep. There's less hoops to jump through. So I really wanted to stick through with her because I knew eventually we were going to close once we found something she enjoyed. And then from one of the other podcasts that we were on, we actually had tons of people reach out to us. And so I work with 2 guys out of California. I am their realtor, and they have closed. Actually, they closed on a second duplex today. So they've now closed on 2 duplexes that they've used me from, that they met me from a different podcast that we were on.
Nice. So is that your primary job now? Do you still have the W-2?
Oh no. No, that's like, I always tell everybody, and it's funny because my 7-year-old always tell everybody, like, my dad's got 5 jobs and what does he say? And
he's a famous YouTuber.
And so no, like my primary job, I am a full-time ACT case manager actually in Saginaw. And so that's like the most intense case management that exists. And so I do that. And then I carry additional responsibilities in that same agency. So I primarily work probably 40, 45 hours in like ACT, and then another 10 to 15 hours at the other responsibility. And then I screen people for crisis at the hospital on nights and weekends. So I work anywhere from 5 to 8 hours to up to 30 hours, depending on the week and what's needed. And then I have my real estate license, and then we also self-manage all of our properties. So I always tell people I got 5 jobs.
Yeah, staying busy, definitely. So, with everything you guys have accomplished over the last couple of years, what would you say your biggest obstacle is now?
The
market, interest rates.
Yeah, so the biggest problem right now is just the market, because interest rates are high, and then in the area that we invest in, like the cost never really decreased with the increase of the interest rates, which then also caused supply to reduce, which then everything basically kind of stayed stagnant. And so now, right now, what we're trying to do is we're most likely just going to buy our next property cash and then kind of just sit on it until we then can refinance that property once rates drop. I don't mind having like a 9% interest rate and then refinancing if and when rates drop. I don't want to pay points because right now I'm getting quoted at 4 to 5 points, and that's money that I'll never get back.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to avoid points. So that means we have to buy our next property cash, which we make about a surplus of about $8,000 a month with the cash flow from our rentals and like my W-2 jobs and her W-2 jobs. So we make a pretty significant amount per month. So we can buy $100,000 house cash roughly once a year.
So have you guys started looking into, setting up the vendor financed mortgages instead of going to the bank? Have you started investigating that, taking control of properties without actually taking the title directly? Have you looked into how you can navigate that? Because a lot of people, just as what I'm seeing on the podcast here, people in different markets are saying, well, I could buy last year's rate or 2 years ago out of a 5-year mortgage and get into that property, wait out the interest rate, and then when the rates go down, finally close on it in like 3 or 4 years. So that might be something. It's not for everyone. It's like a strategy that seems to be emerging, especially in my market, but definitely it's a way people are building their real estate portfolios under high interest rates.
We've looked into like the subject to, and we've looked into like the wraps and different things like that are available to kind of work around it, work into seller financing. But the thing is, right now, we're not in a hurry to necessarily buy our next property. We're not panicking. I mean, we bought 6 properties in less than 2 years, and we have significant capital to continue buying properties in our area. So we're not going to make
it be the right deal.
Correct. Right. We're not going to make a mistake just because we want to get the next property.
Yeah, doing deals to do deals. Yeah.
Yeah. In real estate, I kind of, the theory is like, as long as you're just buying your next property, even if that property doesn't cash flow, if you pay cash for it, you're still going to get $1,100, $1,200 a month. And then eventually with the appreciation, you can sell that property down the road and you're going to make money. So as long as you're smart about it, you're always going to make money. There's always going to be money there. And so I enjoy my job. She works full time. She enjoys her job. So we're kind of not in a hurry, but we do have a plan to both be retired by 45, and we're more than on pace for
awesome
that goal.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, most people have a 6 or 7 at the front of that, so it's like definitely shortening that up. You're not too far away. You said you're 38, right, or 37? So you have 37. Like 6 years. Yeah, 6 or 7 years, right?
Yep. So my original goal before the market started really struggling 6, 7 months ago, it was 5 years. So I would have been 43, 42, 43. And so, but now with the change in the market, obviously we're kind of shifting it back a few years. But again, if the market cleans up like it was, it could drop down to, 40, 41. So it just kind of all depends. We're just playing it based on how the market turns out.
So right now you're self-financed. You're planning to continue to self-finance. You're not using any JVs or any sort of partnerships to buy property?
No, we've discussed it in the past. When we did the other podcast, we had tons of people reaching out, wanting us to partner with deals because basically we have the experience and the education and they had some capital. But for right now, we've heard so many horror stories of partnerships going wrong, people taking advantage of their partners, people, disappearing,
Yeah.
And so for us right now, because we make that surplus capital every single month, it's like, why stress ourselves out with anybody that's not us? If it becomes a thing where we eventually needed it. I mean, I've reached out to my brothers and talked to them about like, hey, let's build a large apartment complex. And between the 3 of us, we'll probably need right around 250 to 300K to start this process. Like, is that something you're interested in doing? I've had very small but not serious conversations with people because at this point we're growing fast enough by ourselves that we're doing fine.
Yeah, and then when it comes up, you might actually just be able to pull the equity that you've amassed. Let's say in like a couple of years, you're like, well, let's build that apartment block. Let's look at the equity. The bank will probably come around. Well, depending if you want the terms, right? You can always get a mortgage. Do you like the terms? So
right.
With all the people that you're talking to and the different things you're doing, Financial education seems to be coming up time and time again with the people that you're talking to. And how does that all play into, because you said you're on this podcast and you've got your social media accounts that are growing every day. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are so interested in financial education these days?
I think because especially here in America, we do not do a good job teaching financial literacy to kids. And so you have people that are graduating high school and entering into college and taking out large debts because they're told that they need to go to school, but they're not really told why that they need to go to school. They're told that they need to get a skill that allows them to make more money, but then it's like, what are you supposed to do with that money? And then so we see people out here that are buying things that look good, but they're not an asset. They're buying things that show like signatures of like wealth, nice shoes and purses and cars and stuff that show signatures of wealth, but they don't actually grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we could really teach the youth of America that if you start to saving, live frugal, budget, and buy assets, that the life is going to be a lot much smoother. It's going to decrease depression and anxiety if we can start to do these things at a young age. Because if you start in your 40s and 50s doing these things, you have a limited amount of time to do this. But if you start when you're 18, you got 40 years to figure it out, to make mistakes, to correct mistakes, and to go through these things. And so it's just, we really need to focus on educating the youth of America to like, listen, you can invest. I mean, $50 a month you invest that into the stock market at a 12% interest. Look and see what that amount is in 40 years. It's astronomical, and it's only $50 a month. I mean, that's going out to lunch one time.
Well, maybe not even anymore, but
right.
But Brandon, that's no fun. Why would the youth of America want to be frugal and save money and invest? Like, that doesn't sound fun at all.
And I get a lot of hate comments for things just like that, but for me, I can preach it because I lived it. I had friends. I once I moved out, I've had roommates since I moved out because I always wanted to split the bill. Before Dani and I met and moved in together, I lived in a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 roommates because I knew I could split the cable bill, the housing, the internet. Like the entire thing was split 3 ways, which allowed me to start building that capital at that point when I was only 22. And so you have to start young. I paid off my car so I didn't have to pay the interest on it. And so you just start young doing these things. And then when we finally decided at the age of, I was 35 and you were 30.
How old am I? 34.
So
33. Yeah.
So we were
This puts her on the spot.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
You're not supposed to let people know.
Fine.
And so like we were able to do these things because we both made these smart choices younger in life, but now they're just assuming that over 2 years we've grown this, but this has been a long process along the way.
Well, you'll notice too that there's kind of like an arc, get some money and then show people where all of your money, and then eventually start investing. You see the people that break through the financial top, suddenly they're wearing regular Walmart clothes, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. I'm not spending my money on things and vanity. I'm spending it, like, all the money that I make and all the things that I do are so that I don't have to keep doing all the things that I do to keep this thing going, because it is a bit of a hamster wheel, like buying that new bag, buying that new car, going on vacations that you maybe can't even afford. And right, like the credit card debt index is out of hand. For
Did you
every
know that
dollar, it's $1.63. I think it might even be $1.73. People are spending $1.73 for every dollar they earn in today's economy.
the average American has 700 or 7,951,000 or $7,951 in credit card debt is what the average American has.
That's nothing. That's very little credit card debt. And when you think about it, that being the average, because there's people with none, maybe they don't even have a credit card.
Yep.
But if you watch Dave Ramsey's show at all, people will call in and they'll be like, yeah, between me and my husband, we have like almost $1 million of debt. And you wonder sometimes, like, at certain point that becomes like, there's not really a responsibility on the people lending the money to say, hey, like, like, this isn't, that's too much debt. You can never pay it off. And they don't seem to care. They're just, a lot of talk of just like, oh, we'll just go bankrupt and we'll just do it again.
That's like for us right now, the only debt we have is the cash out refinance on this, our 6 rental properties, and then her student loans, but they're in forgiveness because we're both social workers. And so they're in that social work forgiveness program. And so outside of that, we have everything else paid off. We put all of our bills in as much as we can each month on our credit card just to get that free cash back. And then we pay that credit card off every month and we never pay the interest on it. So we get 2 to 5% back on that credit card every single month, but we never pay any interest on it. So we just take the free money. And so it's just doing small things like that to realize how you can kind of cheat the system to get free money where you wouldn't normally get it. I mean, we put our consumer's bill, our phone bills as automatically all prepaid on our credit card. And our credit card might be, $3,000 a month, sometimes more, depending on, what we put on there. But we pay that off at the end of every single month. And then, you're getting 2 to 5% on that amount of money. So it's just trying to
go ahead. Well, I was going to say with, my brother, the same thing. He's got the credit card, and you said cheating the system, but really you're actually just playing within the bounds of the game. Like, just because people don't know all of the rules, that's really where people end up losing in the game, is that they haven't learned the rules of the game. And if you don't know the rules of the game, how can you win? So educating yourself is really important.
And that's a lot of the stuff I share on, especially like my TikTok, about these type of things. And people don't even understand the tax benefits. If you just own one rental property, you get the depreciation of the property, and then you can say you run your business out of your house. And so then say your office is your living room, which is, say your house is 1,200 square foot and your living room is 400 square foot. So you can write off a third of all the bills for that house. You can write off a third of your internet, a third of your consumer's bill, a third of your water. You can write off all that stuff
your
as
insurance,
tax deductions that you can't write off if you just have a W-2 job. So tax benefits are astronomical.
Well, and I think that's the one thing that I hope people get from listening along here today, is that the system was designed for property owners. And if you're not a property owner, you're a renter. Even if you own your primary residence, yes, there is tax benefits for having a home and being the primary owner. But it's when you start getting into the landlordship, because the government doesn't want to do housing. They're not good at it. They have no interest. And so they really do give benefit to the people who are willing to house other people and take on that mortgage debt in a monthly way, to say, these people, I'm in charge of these 10 people, or I'm in charge of these 100 doors. And the government's like, thank you very much. Here's all of the tax breaks. Because that's really how the system, the system was written in a way that allows this sort of property ownership to become the wealth category. And I mean, some people don't own property, but it always seems to come around. The financial literacy starts and you're like, okay, now I'm going to pay down debts and pay down this and do that, and always ends up with, and now it's time to invest in some sort of property. They can't really escape it. There's the saying that says all wealth is either made or held in real estate. Now, one question I have for you guys is, with all the paying down and stuff like that, it sounds like maybe you're not debt adverse, but does owning all this debt now and all these bills keep you up at night in the comparison to when you had everything paid down?
I think it keeps me up more than night than it does him.
Well, he knows the numbers, right?
He does, and
it's going to pay
he
out.
can pull the numbers out quicker than anything. And I think that comes back to like the beginning of trying to convince me of this idea, is we were debt free, and and now we've got all these bills and mortgages when we didn't have one. And so it's a brain switch, and you have to kind of flip the switch and look at it from a different perspective.
I didn't even know who Dave Ramsey was, but we were following the Dave Ramsey lifestyle. And I really kind of drilled that into her when we moved in together, and everything in our relationship was fast. Like, we moved in together after knowing each other for 30 days. We got engaged at 6 months, married at like a year and a half. And we've been together like 9 years now. And so just everything was kind of quick. And so I was just like, these are the things I want to accomplish. Is like, can you get on board with that train? Because like our values have to align. And she's like, yep, absolutely. Like we can do this together. And so like we had this Dave Ramsey mindset. And then it was very hard to kind of switch that to understand that like Dave Ramsey always says like debt's bad. Well, sometimes debt's good because most people that are rich have got rich by borrowing other people's money and then using that money to leverage assets. And so by educating myself, I was able to like, okay, this debt isn't bad. And, you know, even though I think I did the numbers the other day, I think our total mortgages is right around 440K is what we owe. But it's like those, after we cover all of our bills, we cash flow at $2,000 a month. And so even if three of them were vacant or something happens, the other three are still going to cover the entire mortgage and everything else that goes into it, the taxes, and the insurance and everything else that goes into it. It's like, we're fine. And it's crazy because before we started doing this 2 years ago, our net worth was right around $200,000. You know, we had our house paid off, we had our cars paid off. And I didn't have any 401k at the time. She had one because she had been at the company for a longer duration. And now fast forward, like our net worth, I just did it the other day. It's right around 650K. So we've almost tripled our net worth in 2 years. So imagine what it'll be in another 2 years. I know a million.
Especially the properties are going to appreciate. You're going to get the pay down. You're going to see the next deal. You're going to get the better interest rates. You know, the feds are talking about cutting this year. So, you know, it's wide open spaces. I think really the thing that scares a lot of people about debt is that there's no differentiation between good debt and bad debt. You know, you can have a pile of, you know, designer clothes, or you could have a rental property. Like both of them could, you know, to get into that rental property, if you're working a W-2 and you're spending, you know, $5,000 or $10,000 over a couple of years on new clothes that maybe you wear one time, you could have put that into a saving account. You could have taken that and then made it your down payment, got into that first rental. And typically a good rental is like a 1.6 or 1.8 to 1. So you end up with, you guys have 6 and you're saying 3 pay for the other 3 should anything happen. And that's really the game. Like 1, yes, is good. 2, that's you know, things are starting to move. And it's when you get into that, you know, the 10 and 10, the husband can have 10, the wife can have 10. And then that's kind of where a lot of people will stop, because now you're talking about commercial mortgages and things like that. The rate's a little higher. But when you look at 10 and 10, like you're at 6 now. If you guys had 20, things would be different, and you'll get there. It's just a matter of time. Like people are in a big hurry. A lot of people are trying to scale. Let's scale these properties up. Let's get as many properties as we can in a year. How about 1? How about just starting with 1, everybody? Just start with 1 and take it easy, and don't over do it, you know?
And the thing is, you have to be as flexible as possible in this process. Like when we started this, I figured I would do all the management of the properties. She would do the bookkeeping. And then we were maybe 6 months into it. And I came home one day, I'm like, Dani, I can't do this. I can't have tenants call me while I'm at work. I'm about to have a panic attack. I'm going to lose it. I was like, what can you do to start help supporting a little bit more in the business? She's like, Brandon, how about I just fully take over the property manager aspect of this and you won't have to worry about it at all. I'm like, wait, you'd be willing to do that? And like, then I struggled. I'm like, I kind of, this is about me. This is my dream. I started when I was 18. She's like, no, I got this. And so she fully property manages all of them. And I'm kind of hands out. So she's the property manager and I call myself like the asset manager. Now it's my job to go find the next property and see what's out there while also working all these extra jobs to make the surplus of capital. And we are legit the perfect couple. And I could not do this without her, because she then manages all like the appointments with the kids and she does everything else possible to make my life easier. So we know our roles. And so that's when people come to me is like, well, what are you looking for like in a partner when you're investing? Like you've got to have firm expectations. And if it's not like a marriage, then I encourage people to like go to a lawyer before you buy your first property and have it written out, like what is each expectations of this partnership, so that way you know, and there's no confusion. Because with us right now, we know what our roles are.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what a marriage is supposed to be, right? There's some stuff written, and then you do some vows, and then that's kind of how the thing goes. So, you know, without that security, if you're trying to build with a spouse that you're not on the same page with, to the point where because it sounds like you're a committed guy, really quick, always makes a decision, keeps moving. 30 days, 6 months, a year and a half, property, says it's going to do something, does something. And that's really what is a driving force in the whole thing. So she's like, whatever you need, babe. And then you get it done. So
Yep.
Oh yeah. When he comes home with an idea, I'm always like, okay, here we go.
whatever it is, let's see. So it's, taking notes. So if people want to find out more, they want to connect with you, they want to find, I think you had mentioned you have a TikTok where you're doing your financial literacy. How do they find you? What should they do?
Yep. My TikTok's just my name, Brandon Tilson, Tilson is the last name. We have a social media page, or we have a YouTube channel. Do you remember what it is?
It's a day in the life of
Day in the life of a real estate investor. That's our YouTube channel. So that's the most of the stuff we do. The TikTok's the one I'm really trying to focus and grow on right now, just with that financial literacy.
Well, I think people got a little bit of financial education just being on listening along here tonight. I really appreciate the time, guys.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. And until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.